Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me this morning on December 1st. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving and are getting ready for or are already ready for the holidays coming up this month. Vicki Carpenter, welcome. I just see your smiling face, and I want to first of all just say thank you for being my very special guest on this December edition of Coffee and Conversations.
I'm thrilled to be here, Leslie. Thank you for inviting me. I always love chatting with you.
Well, you know, kind of the theme of this year's Coffee and Conversations has been life lessons, and the last life lesson in my list that I did a few years ago was love will find you. And when I thought about this year, I thought December, and it's the holidays, and it's gratitude, and it's love, and who would I like to talk about this with? And there was no question. The first person that came to my mind was you, Vicki. And so we're going to talk about love and soulmates and just a very positive look at what a loving, healthy relationship looks like. Because for some of us that haven't always been in those, you just wonder what it looks like and what it feels like and how you make it happen. So let's get started first, because I think a lot of people that are on, know you. You are such a legend in our industry, certainly in California, and I'm sure nationally as well. But let me just give a little bio. Vicki's been in the real estate business for 30 years. She is a top producer. She is the head of training in her office. She is an industry leader. She has been a director of the California Association of Realtors. She has been a president of Inland Valley and Southwest Riverside County Association of Realtors. She is a past president of the Menifee Valley Chamber of Commerce. She is a trustee of the Mount San Jacinto Community College. What else? In 2020, she was named Woman of the Year by State Senator Mike Morrell from District 23. And maybe the most exciting, sexy thing is she was on House Hunters this year. What was that like before we get started, Vicki, your House Hunters experience?
It was quite amazing, actually. And just to kind of see how the sausage is made, be behind the camera and,
right.
The takes that they did and how they put it all together was really quite amazing. And in COVID, and we had to act like there was no COVID, so we were tested and we had to keep our distance. So it was a little awkward in that respect, because usually you're closer and you're
right.
So, but it really is a great experience. I suggest anyone who gets asked to do it, please do it and be there and just have fun. We have fun.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's really thrilling to see people on television and doing real estate. It was pretty terrific. So before we start talking about love, I'd like you to just spend a little bit of time giving us some professional background, like how I read all of these amazing achievements. How'd you do it? How did you get into real estate, and how did you build this 3-decade-long career that is so magnificent?
Wow, just actually, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Right.
I was in the legal field before I was in real estate, and so I actually kind of entertained the idea of going, to law school. But I'd have to go back and get a degree, and it would be a longer process. And my husband was an attorney, so we thought one attorney in the household is enough. Right. And my daughter was getting a little older, and I wanted to spend more time with her, which is what a lot of realtors say. I want to have flexibility with our time. Right? Wrong, not if you do it right. But anyway, so we thought about real estate, and my husband supported me and said, allowed me to study. I kind of worked a little bit still at the law firm. I was a paralegal at his law firm. I passed the exam, and it was 1991. And the Tidy Bowl Man and myself were in the toilet together, because that's where the economy was.
I remember.
We had many conversations in that toilet. But It was probably 9 months into it that I had enough connections because I had started being involved with the Chamber of Commerce, and of course
Right.
through my husband, who is also has a servant heart and was very involved in the community. And after that, it just took off. I mean, it took me 9 months to get my first paycheck, but then I just started, the economy changed a bit, and off and running I was. After about a couple of years, I love training. I love teaching people. And so
Right.
my company made me a mentor, asked me to be a mentor to our agents, and then a part of the management team. And now I'm the director of training and still
Right.
part of the management team. I did manage for a while in office, but I'm really happy doing what I'm doing now. It does afford me more flexibility. I just love it. I love real estate, and I love CAR, and then I got
Yeah.
into, they start, of course, they suck you into the association. Got to get on the committee, and then they get you on the board, and then you have to be president. And then here you are, you're at CAR director. And last
Well,
year I
I
was
want
on.
to ask you about that because there are people that have kind of the professional side of their business resumes that look like yours, and they're like, I don't have time. I don't want to be involved. Just no, I'm going to stay focused on the bottom line. And here you are with both. Like, how did that happen? Were you encouraged to do it, or did you do it despite the resistance from your company? Or how did that blend? So I'm not going to say seamlessly, but it looks like it.
I think I was told once, if somebody asks you or invites you to do something, do it.
Yeah.
Try it.
Right.
But the relationships, so once you get involved, you realize how important those relationships are, and the friendships you make. And then you really also, for your clients, it's a great thing to be as involved as we are, because we're on the front, and we're the boots on the ground advocating for our clients. And so the more you see that, and I saw that directly because one law that came into be, probably about 8-10 years ago, was the rental restriction law.
Uh-huh.
And that came from actually one of my clients who was opposed to the rental restrictions that were being imposed by the HOA there. I thought, I don't think you can do that. So I took it to my local association. They said, I don't think they can do that. And then we went to CAR, Alex and all of them, and
Right.
we crafted legislation as a result of that. We didn't get everything we wanted, but who does? And so they kind of call it the Carpenter law now, but it
Vicki, I
actually
had no
originated.
idea you were behind that, and that is just absolutely incredible.
Yes. So anyway, there are some laws now limiting some of the restrictions that they tried to impose.
Well, you talk about getting into real estate for the flexibility, and I see that you have been very productive in the flexibility that that career has provided for you, because you've just continued. You're like, if you want something done, ask a busy person. I think you are that person, right?
Right. And I think it's hard to balance. I will say, when you have a family and a husband, also have a life, and so trying to balance that, I think we did a good job of it while Tom was with us and alive,
Yeah.
because he really did have that servant heart. But I've since he's passed, it has afforded me a lot more
Right.
opportunity to be involved. And in fact, that is kind of my social life
Yeah.
now, and my friends, and I just keep getting sucked in.
No,
But
no.
I enjoy it. I enjoy it.
I understand the hardest part of being quote unquote retired in this pandemic and living on the other coast has just been, where'd all my peeps go? I just
Right.
miss everybody, miss everyone so much. So anyway, I'd like to talk again, before we get to the love part, a little bit more about you personally in terms of kind of your origin story. Because, one of the things that I've always felt so close to you about is, we both have Swedish ancestry, and you were from Chicago. My mother is from Chicago. We both met kind of the loves of our lives later after a few fits and starts. And
Mhm.
I don't know, there's just something about you that I've just felt this commonality. And I'd really just like to hear about growing up in Chicago and what, how that made you who you are, right?
Oh yeah, I love my hometown. I have to tell you, not now or through March, April, maybe go back. But Chicago was a great experience to grow up in, and I was pretty mobile. I learned early to get around town. You hop on a bus, you hop on a train or an L track train. And my sister's not so much, but I did. And I used to be an ice skater, a former figure skater.
Wow.
And so to get to the skating rinks, I had to use public transportation. So I got to know Chicago pretty well. And after my education, my high school, after I graduated high school, I started in a bank, which was the Hancock Building. So I worked in the Hancock
Right.
Building, and then I had an opportunity to get into the legal field, and I ended up working for the Sears attorneys in the Sears Tower. It's Willis now, but it will always be and should be
It will
Sears.
always be the Sears
Yeah,
Tower.
exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I love Chicago, and I guess being able to be by a lake, being in the midst of everything, right? And it was a great town, but you know what? I don't think I'd want to live there today, for sure. Even though the downtown area has really grown up from when I worked downtown, because they've redeveloped it, and so it's a great place to live now and to work. But I really like the smaller. Of course, Menifee, where I am at now, is now 100,000+ residents.
I
So
can't believe that.
it was only like 35 when I got here, 35,000, if that. So it's getting to be a little bit more big city. But yeah, I wouldn't have changed living in Chicago for anything. And I lived right down the street from an L track. And
Right.
they talk
Right.
about noise in real estate. After a year, you don't even know that the L track is there.
No,
You don't even
it's
hear it
amazing what you can get used to, right?
right. Yeah.
So let's talk about Tom, right? From you're so active on social media and you're so sharing about how you're feeling and what that relationship is and was and still is. So I'd really love to hear how it happened, and was it love at first sight, and what was the magic that happened, and how did that look compared to what you experienced in the past? Just give us some of that.
The flavor, how it's.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, it really wasn't sparks or anything in the beginning, because initially he was my boss. I worked for him.
Right.
But I remember meeting him when we met for the interview. I had actually interviewed for the firm before, about a month before, and for a computer job. But I
So
knew
how
that.
did you get out to California? I guess I wanted to also say
Okay.
that. How did the Chicago to California thing
Um,
happen? And then the paralegal part happened, right?
well, yes, the worst. Well, I had the worst and I had the best in terms of husbands, and I had an abusive, physically and emotionally abusive ex-husband, and he, to the point where the last act, I didn't want it to be the last act, but he had a gun to my head, and there was just something that triggered or changed in him, and so. I came to California because we had legal custody, or he did, of his 4 children, and then we had Renee. So the others came back to their mom here in California. And so when that happened, I just knew I needed to get away, totally away.
Right.
So I
Right.
just picked up my
And
daughter,
why not come to
got on,
California?
yeah, and got on a plane where her siblings were. And God, who doesn't want to live in California, right? But
Right.
they were extenuating circumstances. And I left everything else back in Chicago. And I wouldn't change a thing for it, because it
Oh
brought
my
me to
goodness.
Tom.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the attitude. And did you go into the legal profession in California? Is that when you
Actually, no,
no?
I was a legal assistant for because Renee was born in Miami, and we lived there for a while. And the real estate attorney, I was his secretary.
Oh, I see.
Uh,
Okay.
and so I started to live, that's kind of where my real estate beginnings began. So then when I went to Chicago, when we moved back to Chicago, I just started looking at law firms, and I ended up at one law firm, which is a family law, and then to the Sears Tower.
Right.
And then
Okay. Got
from
it.
there to California after all that other stuff went down.
So you're a paralegal and you're working for Tom, and there are no sparks. He's your boss, plain and simple.
Right.
So then what happened?
Well, Well, but let me tell you really quickly, when I went on interview, we sat down, and he's from Chicago. I was from Chicago. He worked for a trust bank, in the trust department for a bank in Chicago. My first job was in banking, and then we're in the legal field. So I got the phone call like 2 hours later. I had the job. Okay,
Right.
so then I worked for him for about 5 years. He was married, and I really didn't know much about his personal life at all. And then at some point he left his wife, and then started, sometime after that, I can't remember how long after that, but a while, he asked me out to dinner. And I went, no, no, I didn't even see that coming, Leslie. I had no
Yeah.
idea. I respected him. I loved working for Tom and the firm, but I was already dating someone else. And so later he told me that, and then he asked me again. And then finally, at some point, I was like, okay, I'll go to lunch, okay.
Right. Well, let's do lunch,
Yeah,
right?
let's just do lunch. And, but he told me later that he escalated his asks to go out because I was getting roses, because I was dating someone else. And I would get about a dozen roses once a month from this nice man. But what he didn't know, when he really was worried on that last dozen roses, those are my kiss off roses from my soon to be ex-boyfriend. But Tom thought that he needed to
Going
get
out in
in,
style there.
right. Tom thought he needed to get in the game here. I didn't know that he had feelings for me, but as we dated, again, I respected him already.
Right.
I loved he was corny jokes. Just loved his corny jokes. How intelligent he was. I loved his brain.
Right.
And so we started going out, and not too much later, he asked me to marry him. And so I think that our love grew, because initially it was a little difficult the first couple of years, because he was older than I am. He was 20 years older. So, there's a little bit of a culture and
Right.
difference between the two. And initially I was very independent. I have always been pretty independent. And that was something he didn't have or was ever used to. So he had to grow into that, because I wasn't going to change. And
Right.
then we kind of compromised, and I kind of, okay, until I think he probably thought I would go off with someone else. I don't know, but trust endured, and there was just so many moments. I can't. The things that I miss most, I think, is our talks. He was so great at and so intellectual and so great at debating. I loved our walks. We used to take walks on weekends and we would walk to a great place to eat.
Right.
And I enjoyed that time. And I have to tell you, even when he got sick, I think that's the thing I missed most, when we couldn't do that.
Right. So it
Yeah.
sounds like your channels of communication were wide open,
Yes.
right? That you could talk about anything, and when stuff came up, you kind of worked it through,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? You didn't end up with the drama of your first marriage and just all
None
of
of that.
all of that.
No.
Yeah, I did some digging on Tom, and just reading what people said about him and his, incredible resume and all of that stuff. And I was just struck by, he was a Marine. He was educated by the Jesuits, and I kind of noticed that because my John has the same background, and it has been a real eye opener for me to see kind of those principles, which I think are shared by many religions. This isn't a particular
Absolutely.
judgment type thing, but just to see an individual put those principles into practice on a daily basis is pretty remarkable, when you're not used to having seen that, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You're not used to that. I hadn't been, for sure.
So, one of the things I was wondering is, in that gap between your first marriage and with Tom, I mean, were there periods of time when you were alone? Because I think that there seems to be for many people, a fear, women, a fear of being alone. And it may create a an environment where they make decisions that may not be the best for them. And of course, I kind of feel like the worst thing is to be in a relationship with the wrong person. You know, you really pay a high price for that. So in those intervening years, did you, you know, focus on your career and get comfortable with just being you alone?
I have to tell you, well, it was hard. It was difficult at first because I was in a new place. I really didn't know anyone. My stepkid's mom actually housed me for a period of time, which I'll be forever grateful for.
Ah,
But there were times I was homeless too, in between. And it's interesting that I look back now. You kind of forced me. I don't think back but in going through all my stories in my mind with him, remembering the hard times that I had here, very difficult. And so, but I had people that helped me, which I'm so grateful for, that got me into an apartment, and we didn't have furniture for a period of time. And then, and then I found the law firm, which really supported me initially. They knew that what my financial hardship was. I'm pretty transparent and pretty open, and you know.
another reason I feel so close to you. Same here.
So I think that, but I grew into it, and I remember my daughter, when I picked her up from school one day, and she went to a Christian school in Hemet, and they said that she, in first grade, she didn't know how to read. And I thought, well, she went to kindergarten. Why doesn't she know how to read? And I was struggling being a mom, being a parent during that time, because I was just trying to take care of me, and then having to have this child who actually was amazing when I look back, and I was very grateful for that. So after a while, I found solace being home, teaching her to read. And the connection that we made from that, when the teacher told me that, and how devastated I was, because I know how important, and I love reading. So that
Right.
really created a quality time, and a time where then I really started settling in with me and
Right.
getting to know me and being okay with me.
Right. And I think that's really the key, right? I always say that my goal was, I was always striving to have my insides match my outsides. And in order to kind of get there, you really do have to do the work, or else it's just never going to be the authentic integrated person that can move forward. And my guess is that that transition for you kind of set you up to be the person that could walk into a relationship with an older, successful, maybe not set in his ways, but certainly has a established worldview
Mhm.
person, and have, I mean, what was the magic with him? What was the
Yeah.
spark that, because it's funny, because like you said, it wasn't in the beginning, and you
Right.
dated for a while, and then it just, I just feel it, like, what happened?
It was deep. I mean, when
Yeah,
you
it
think
was
about it,
deep.
it was
Yeah.
deep. And I just, the way he raised my daughter, essentially, she was like 4 years old. And he was principled. He was a principled man, and others liked him. He was funny, and he loved to do, I mean, he was up for anything, Leslie. You just ask him to do anything, and I would go,
Right.
oh, really? We really should be staying and doing this. And no, let's just go and let's travel. And we would travel. Um, and we would party, and he would party later than I needed to get to bed, and this man could anyone under the table. I mean, I know if my CAR friends are, if they see this, those of them that know or knew Tom, uh, we all had a great time, and they loved Tom. They really
Right.
did. It was, if he wasn't next to me, I was like, where's Tom? Where'd he go? So he was loved by just about everyone, and he had great jokes too. So he kept me on my toes, and more importantly, he gave me the room to kind of feel things out, and supported me and guided me.
Right.
And in the last couple, maybe 5 years that he was alive, when we would be in a place where you have to do self introductions, he would say, "And I'm Mr. Vicki Carpenter."
Oh, I
So
love, and he probably loved that,
yes,
right?
yes, I loved that, and everyone else did. It was so endearing. So yeah, it's going to be 9 years this month, the end of December. So these are kind of the emotional times. My anniversary was a couple weeks ago, and going into the holidays, and so more memories seem to pop up about this
Well,
time.
speaking of that, I did want to read, if you don't mind, what you posted a few weeks ago, because I just thought it was so beautiful. Is that all right?
Sure, thank you.
Okay. You can, we'll cry together. It says, "Dear Tom, missing you on our 36th anniversary. I'm celebrating us this date as I do each and every day. I know you're here in spirit and wish I could dance with you, brush my hand against your face, and more importantly, have our usual debates on so many issues. It's the debates I miss the most. You inspired me. You checked me when needed. You did not define me and yet loved me. You truly did complete me. I've missed you terribly, especially these past 2 years. Love you and always will." And I just think that paragraph is like, what does a healthy relationship look like? And one of the things I've always thought, as I look at where I am now in this incredible, I think very similar situation, I feel like this is someone who's making me, helping me to be a better person, and in the past I was with people that wanted me not to be better, that was competitive with that, they weren't in my corner. And so to have this true partnership, in addition to everything else, is just such a beautiful thing. And I just honor you and him, that you, because I'm sure you kind of rocked his world a little bit, right? I mean, you're 20 years younger, you're an independent woman, and you're very successful and you're smart. And he's probably going, whoa, this is really something, right?
And he
This
probably thought I was going to marry
tornado.
right. I think he thought I was going to marry right after, because he kept saying, "And you feel free," and I'm like, "No, I just, I have male friends and companions, but I'm okay. I'm really okay." And I just love watching you and John. I've not met him personally, which I hope one day will
I
change.
hope so too. I hope so
Love
too.
to, I'd love to sit down and chat with him as well. But I can see you light up, Leslie. You're like, you are wonderful, because I've known you from way
Long
before.
time.
And
Yeah.
your closer friends know you with John. But when you talk about him, your whole face, I love it.
Well,
I
and
love
I feel the
seeing.
same with you, just this, you just don't take it for any of it for granted, like every day is special. And especially when you get together with someone like I did in my mid 60s,
Right.
it's not as if you've got all these long decades coming up. It's just like, this is now, and we need to um, celebrate now. And I feel that with you and Tom, that you really took every day and just got all of the joy that you could out of it. So that's
I did. You
pretty
did.
special. So one of the things my daughter Kelly once said is, "I'm not dating anyone who's not at least of the caliber of my girlfriends." And I just thought it was such an interesting comment, because you do see women with men and you're like, what's that about? What is behind that? And I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that. Like, what is it that makes us, or I don't want to personalize this that much, but settle, because once you've got the real thing, you're like, what was I thinking?
Right, right,
Right.
right. Which is why I'm not right now thinking of dating, because I've had the worst, I've had the best, and
Right.
I want to. I just, and I'm okay with it, and I love my memories. But I worked. Tom was an estate attorney, so I worked in a senior community. I think I was like, what was it, 29 when I came out here? I don't remember, with my late 20s, and I'm thinking, what am I doing in a senior community? Wills. I've done family law, and real estate law. Why am I in wills and probates and things like that? And I really find in that community that women and men are very dependent upon their partner. And it's not always love, but there's a dependency. Someone's there, someone's taking care of them. And I see a lot of that in the senior community. And I thought to myself, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be dependent. I can remember taking one of our clients to the bank. She had never written a check.
Wow.
And I
Yeah.
thought, how sad. She didn't know anything about banking or how to take care of herself. So I don't know. I don't know why people settle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't either. And I think one of the great things about real estate is you do see so many successful women,
Amen.
that are taking care of business and making it happen and not waiting for that, that to be taken care of for them, you
Right.
know.
And
So
I love seeing women in positions that in the past really were, you didn't see women especially in the medical fields and in real estate more and more. I mean, I got into it, it was very male dominated.
yeah, and I think again, that's what Women Up is all about, right? Kind of
Yeah. Yay for
recognizes
women up.
even in our own industry, right? That
Yeah.
there's work to do. And thank goodness for the Sherry Chris's and the Pam O'Connors of the world who have really gotten to the C-suites and make such a difference for the rest of us. But we do have a really a ways to go. So how are you getting ready for the holidays? Are there any kind of traditions that you've carried over? I know I've bought all of the fixings for my mother's Swedish cardamom coffee cake braided. I mean, it's going to be a mess, but I'm going to do it on Friday and I will report back. Is
Yes.
there anything that you've got planned?
Well, actually, I'm going to be with Tom's daughter for Thanksgiving, and then I go to Christmas in Scottsdale with my daughter.
Wonderful.
I wanted one correction I needed, maybe two, but I'm more Danish. My family's from Denmark, and a lot of
Right.
them are in Michigan,
Well,
but
we're Scandinavian
Scandinavia,
family,
yes.
right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But my daughter married, so my mother's name was Hansen, and my
Right.
daughter married a Johnson. Now Johnson, and they are Swedes through and through.
Very much so, right? Yeah, my grandmother was a Johnson. Yeah.
Okay, so it was, I think I reached out to you for the Swedish pancakes because
Right. And I got you that, right?
yes.
Yeah.
And so that's something that we did, the Swedish meatballs. So we do that usually at Christmas and the Johnson, with the Johnsons.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
always a lot of fun. But for my Danish background, I didn't really have, I'm mostly German and Danish and then mixed.
Yeah.
But at any rate, I don't have a whole lot of the Danish background, but I certainly have learned a lot about the Swedish culture and their recipes and how their holidays. And it's kind of morbid, but we go to Michigan every year for an annual family get together. And
Yeah.
we visit the cemetery where my son-in-law's family is there. And
Oh.
oh my God, I never knew there were so many Johnsons. Oliver Johnsons, and most of them are related. So
No, yeah, I mean, I probably am with you because I'm through that tree because I'm hold on a second, I gotta shut my blinds here because it looks like I'm having a revelation here. Just a second.
yes, I know. Thought you were fading away, Leslie.
I know, right?
There you go.
That'll be a little bit better.
Yes, there you are. So beautiful.
So Vicki, what's ahead for you? What are your plans going forward? Is there anything you're particularly looking forward to, or any adventures or travel or just anything?
I'm not one. I think, I'm of an age where now I maybe should think about retiring. I don't know what that looks like for me or how that feels because I'm not one to sit around. I'm already involved. I know I'll probably get more involved, but I don't know that I want to be that much more involved. So I usually do one stint and then move on to another where there's a need. But I don't know. I think what I'd like to do for sure is take a little more time off down the road and spend it with my family. I'm doing some
I know
travel.
you have your darling grandson.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah.
So
I
cute.
I have probably with the blended family, I've lost count, I think, at 15 grandkids and
Oh my
like
gosh,
7
that's
great kids.
incredible.
So, when we get together, it's a zip code. And we have fun. But the budget for Christmas is terrible. I mean, gosh. But anyway, I just think being more present with my family, and that means Tom's side. And even I'm still close to my ex-husband's kids, you know, because they're a sibling of mine. But more importantly, we built a relationship together, and I love those kids too.
And you can honor that while moving on from the past. I mean, there's
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, Vicki, well, is there anything else that we should be talking about? I just really appreciate you sharing kind of the inside of um, your incredible marriage, and just
Yeah.
what a
It's
wonderful thing. And how how are you doing? I mean, it's been 9 years, but it probably seems like it was just yesterday, right?
it's amazing that it's been 9 years, and because yes, there are feelings that come up that it's just like it was yesterday.
Right.
But in all the things that have happened in 9 years, I think that he's missed, you know, but
Yeah.
I hope that
I
he's,
know he'd be so proud of you.
oh, thank you. Thank you. I wish, I just want to spoon with him, you
Yeah.
know.
Right.
I just want
Right.
to spoon. I do have a little poem I have if we're a part of closing. I don't know where
I'd
we're
love to hear it. I'd love to hear it.
These are the things he used to do. Was a gentleman, any of you are listening out here, that really endeared me to him. I would go, most of the time he traveled with me, but there would be times I'd go away because I was the director for NAR and CAR for a number of years. I still am with CAR. But so when he couldn't come with me, because he still was working for most of it, he didn't retire until his mid 70s. But this is one in particular I really liked, and I still keep it, and it's a little bit, you know,
Oh,
but it says, we are one. When you are not here, the better part of me is there. When you are not here, I long to be there. When you return, our better parts are one again. When you return, we are whole. Let nothing come between us. And that was dated January 29th, 2011. And he wrote, I love you more than you will ever know, Tom. And I felt it.
it's when you have that, it you can't replicate it, and it's just there, and it's just such a beautiful thing. And
We have been blessed, Leslie.
we have been blessed. And I it's weird in our Women Up community, because I don't want to make you know being in a relationship with a partner bigger than it is. And yet, for me, meeting, I mean, I met John 30 years ago,
Yeah,
but
right.
getting together with John 4 years ago was like the best thing that ever happened to me. And I am so it's just been incredible, and just the energy and the happiness, and not struggling. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
it's just been really something. And I just want to say, just it's never too late. There's no expiration date on us, and there's no due date. And I want to have a conversation next year about what aging and retirement look and feel like, because when you're younger, you think, oh, 60, oh, 60, life is over, it's done, whatever. And you get up there and you're like, what are they talking about? I feel like I'm just getting started. And you're still can love, and you still can travel. And the only thing that kind of limits your mobility is how well you've taken care of your body, or the genetics that you inherited. And there are just so many misconceptions that I think about when I think about where I am today. And it's like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
I feel great,
Life well lived.
life well lived. So, be patient, do the work, and just enjoy whatever it is. I think the other thing is also just to be open to the universe. And by that, I mean, you were open to having lunch. It wasn't on your radar. You hadn't been, but you were open to seeing where that went. I always wondered what does being open to the universe means? And it kind of means giving up control
Right.
and letting the things that come your way impact you, right? And look at them as an opportunity. And so the fact that you did that opened the door, right? Even though you had a, you were
And
dating
I was
Mr.
sure it was
Rose.
going nowhere too, believe
Miss,
me. That in the beginning, I was sure it was going nowhere.
right, right. And even though you had Mr. Rosebud there on the side and all that, but so just it's not over till it's over, enjoy every day. So with that, Vicki, thank you for the beautiful poem. Thank you for joining me today. I just
Yeah,
wanted
thank you.
to share your love story, and thank you for all the years of sharing that, in addition to passing new legislation
In my spare time.
and all you've done right in your spare time.
No, it was a joy. Thank you. And it's joyful talking about him. So thank you. He is my favorite subject. So when you asked me, it was like, of course. I mean, you asked me to do something else on another topic. I'm not so sure, but
Right.
it's always a good topic for me.
No. Oh, absolutely. And you're glowing too. So I just want to thank you. All right, everybody, happy holidays. We'll see you in January. Take care. Enjoy your families.
Happy
Vicki,
holidays.
lots of love. You're the best. Thank
And to you,
you.
and to you, Leslie. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.